Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
Maine and the nation is in an economic funk. Businesses are still very nervous. The recovery is agonizingly slow, and the state is facing a $1 billion deficit in the next fiscal year. Why anyone would want to run for governor is beyond me, but they always do. So to help us frame the discussion for the upcoming political season, we turn to the Maine Development Foundation's report, Maine's Investment Imperative 2, Unleashing the Potential. Our panel of economic experts, policy wonks, and business leaders will help us sort it all out. With us today, we have Laurie Lachance, President of the Maine Development Foundation, Dana Connors, President of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, and Yellow Breen, Senior Vice President with Bangor Savings Bank. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. I'll let you all decide who's the policy wonk, who's the business expert, and you can sort it out amongst yourselves. I think you all know this.
We'll take turns.
Good. That's good. It's that time of year again, and that's really the essence of this report, trying to help frame the discussion as we move into the political season. So, Laurie, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about just the structure of the report itself, how it came about, why now, and what its intentions are.
Sure. Well, the ultimate report, Making Maine Work, the smaller, more concise version with 12 recommendations, was done very much in partnership with the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. And Dana and I had been talking over the last year and actually working on this report for almost a year to try to serve up a set of very prioritized and focused recommendations, because we're about to have a new leader of the executive branch, new leaders in the legislative branch, and we think there's no time like the present to try to add the business perspective to what government can do to really help lay a foundation for growth.
Good, good. So who would you ideally like to read this? And then the next follow-up question is, will they?
Well, I hope everybody running for office will read it thoroughly, and in fact read the 94-page document behind it.
I did.
I know you did. I'm thrilled with that. Because in it is so much information to help guide policy making, but also the business community, and that's who we've been reaching out to.
And let me ask Dana about that then. Dana, with the State Chamber, you represent over 5,000 different businesses throughout the state, through your network of groups. So what you hope to achieve with this, and what do businesses, what do they want to see with being involved with this? Because clearly the business surveys are a real core of how you came up with some of your recommendations.
It is. I mean, and I think that's an important point to be repeated, and that is we didn't sit in a room somewhere and come up with a bunch of ideas. We actually did the survey. Laurie looked at studies. We hashed those out. We worked them through. And really it is, I'm repeating what Laurie said, it is really the business community's respect to the partnership that's necessary to get the job done. You need to stand up and be heard. You need to present to the new governor as he or she takes on their new administration, what do we believe the most important investments to be made to make the economy grow? We did it 8 years ago. It was, at that time, it was called No Place to Hide, and it brought forth some improvements that we can see today. We believe in a new administration, it's the right thing to do. It also respects the partnership that's needed to get it done.
And that was going to be one of my follow-up questions for you is, do these reports have an impact? And can you point to a specific instance?
Yep, they can have an impact. They don't by themselves. Too many of them sit on a shelf somewhere and collect dust. If you've got the idea, if you've got the plan, we believe it is. The second part of that is the implementation. You've got to stay the course. We've made presentations to each of the candidates that were very well received. We need to build a coalition of local chambers, business associations, try to create a unified voice to the degree possible. It will take that type of effort to see it through. There are so many competing interests.
Good question, and I want to move to Yellow about that one and kind of the competing interest. Business, you're a business representative. You speak for all businesses today, by the way. No, seriously. How unified is that group? It's not a monolithic group. How will they be able to use these 12 key points in particular, recommendations, and will they accept those as a group and be able to move forward, or how will that work?
Well, it won't be easy, as Dana said. I think there's a lot of work to get people organized around these recommendations, and then the harder part, frankly, to get them to stay organized around these recommendations over the next 1, 2, 5 years, because these are big things that don't happen overnight. And so you've got to be satisfied with setting a vision and seeing through incremental progress and holding people's feet to the fire. So it won't be easy, but you're right. The business community, doesn't have the same interests. There are folks whose livelihood depend on transportation infrastructure projects funded by the gas tax.
Right.
And there are those whose bottom line is very impacted by every extra penny on the gas tax, in the C-store business and other places. So we're definitely not monolithic. But I think the core of coming together around what are the cost barriers, what are the regulatory barriers, and what do we need to be consistent about over the next decade to actually succeed as a state. I think business can come together around that. We'll only disagree around the details.
Well,
I agree.
Well, yeah, but that's important. The details are the important part. And timing is important too. That's the other part of this question for anyone who wants to jump in is, will business have the patience to do this? I mean, this is the long view piece. We really are looking at the long view for improving our economy and business. Businesses work on sometimes a shorter period, the quarterly reports, and sometimes just making payroll every 2 weeks. Will they have the patience to invest and wait for those results?
That's part of our, I believe yes. I think, however, to your point, you set a plan, this is a plan. It doesn't try to do everything, it tries to do the most important things.
Okay.
There are short-term and long-term. It's up to us to hold them together and to show them success along the way. If we can measure and show results, you will hold them in there. But if you don't do that, you will lose interest. We all would. So there is a responsibility we all have. But yes, these issues are too important to walk away from.
In fact, I think a major frustration of business is that policymakers don't appreciate how long-term their outlook has to be. One of the reasons the recovery is slow is that no one wants to take the risk on a new hire or a new capital investment without knowing for sure that the turnaround is around the corner.
Right.
And so they're making decisions that they know they have to live with. And then businesses look at capital investments depreciated over 30 years, 15 years, 7 years. And so the consistency of the strategy and the investment and the results from state government and policymakers, the lack of that in the past is one of the major frustrations of the business community, and they would like to see more of that long-term focus, not less. Even the mediocre policy pursued aggressively long enough is better than the best policy that changes every year.
Right. We're going to have to wrap this first segment up pretty quickly, but I wanted to ask you, and we're going to get into some of the details in the second segment, but I wanted to ask you, just in general, the first part of the report in the study really dealt with kind of the larger demographics of the state and some of the economic trends, those kinds of things. What were the big surprises there, or the key indicators that you think that you want to make sure people know that may have been surprising? Anything that popped up?
Well, the demographics are the piece that traditionally get left out of any conversation, and yet that's driving everything.
What do you mean?
And the aging of our population and the slow growth of our population make it more important now than ever before to focus on education.
So that's the policy, that's the education is the piece that
that's the education piece, and rethinking the way we deliver things like higher ed. We have to somehow reach out in a degree we've never done before to the incumbent workforce.
Yeah. Yep.
And if we fail at that strategy, we will fail to retool our workforce for the jobs that exist now and in the future.
I love talking about higher ed, so that's great. We're going to get into that. We're going to hold you. Stick around. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with our panel to talk about taxes, regulation, and the cost of doing business in Maine.
Mainebiz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.